sealed by internal orders and hidden in the vaults of the Theosophical Society for more than 8 decades. Helena Blavatsky's lost manuscript describes the soul as a living frequency capable of crossing dimensions. Scientists would call it delusion, until they discovered Tesla was saying the same thing. And in the final notation, there's a warning in red. Disclose this and it will change the course of death as we know it. But that warning came too late. Have you ever felt that inexplicable feeling when you wake up from a dream so vivid it seems more real than reality itself? That sensation of remembering something you've never experienced in this life. Blavatsky knew. She understood why those moments happen, and the truth was so profound that it had to be locked away, protected from those who would exploit it for power. The manuscript wasn't meant to be found, not yet. Not until humanity had evolved beyond its materialistic obsession. But an accident, or perhaps something more intentional, has brought this knowledge into the light. And now, the veil between worlds grows thinner with each passing second. Imagine holding in your hands the key to understanding what happens in those crucial moments when consciousness leaves the physical form, not as religious dogma, not as scientific skepticism, but as a map, precise, detailed, and terrifyingly accurate, of the soul's journey beyond the threshold we call death. India, 1891. The air was thick with incense and monsoon humidity in Blavatsky's chamber when she handed a sealed envelope to Colonel Henry Steele Olcott, co-founder of the Theosophical Society. Her hands, swollen with rheumatism, trembled slightly as she passed him what would become her most controversial legacy. 3 generations, she whispered, her voice weakened by the illness that would claim her life just weeks later. Keep it, sealed for 3 generations. The world is not ready for this knowledge. Olcott, a former Civil War colonel and journalist who had abandoned his skepticism after witnessing Blavatsky's extraordinary abilities, nodded solemnly. He understood the gravity of what she was entrusting to him. This wasn't another theoretical treatise on cosmic law or ancient wisdom. This was something different, something she had never shared even with her closest disciples. The document was bound in leather, its pages covered with Blavatsky's distinctive handwriting, a mixture of English, French, and several symbolic scripts known only to initiates of certain Tibetan orders. Small diagrams filled the margins, intricate, geometric patterns that seemed to shift and realign when viewed from different angles. For decades, this manuscript remained locked in the archives at Adyar, the international headquarters of the Theosophical Society in Chennai, India. Access was restricted to the highest-ranking members, and even they were forbidden from copying or discussing its contents outside the inner sanctum. No unauthorized person has ever seen the complete text, explains Dr. Eleanor Weston, historian and scholar of esoteric movements. But we know it existed, referenced in correspondence between society leaders, alluded to in private journals, always with a sense of reverence and caution. Then in 2018, during a routine digitization project of the Society's archives, something unexpected happened. A junior archivist, scanning what she believed to be Blavatsky's ordinary correspondence, accidentally captured 3 pages that should have remained sealed. Before the error was discovered, these images had already been uploaded to the Society's digital database. Within hours, they were removed, but not before several researchers had downloaded them. And what those pages contained was extraordinary. Detailed descriptions of what Blavatsky called the vibrational vortex of the soul at the moment of death. By the way, from which city are you watching this? I'm curious to know how far this secret has echoed. Type your location in the comments. It's fascinating to see how knowledge finds its way to those ready to receive it. The journey of Blavatsky's hidden manuscript follows a path marked by protection, attempts at exposure, and mysterious circumstances that can hardly be dismissed as coincidence. 3 key moments stand out in this remarkable timeline, each one building toward an inevitable revelation. May 8, 1891. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky draws her final breath in her London home on Avenue Road. Her death, coming after months of illness, sends shockwaves through esoteric circles worldwide. What few know is that Colonel Olcott immediately enacts strict protocols regarding her final manuscript. Within days, he issues Order 27B to all theosophical lodges worldwide. Certain private papers of Madame Blavatsky are to remain sealed and unavailable for study until such time as the Inner Council deems appropriate. The language seems ordinary enough, a standard protection of personal effects, but those closest to Olcott noted a change in his demeanor. William Quan Judge, another co-founder of the society, wrote in his private diary, "HSO seems uncharacteristically troubled by something in HPB's final communications. He has ordered specific papers to be placed in the secure vault, with the extraordinary measure that any member attempting unauthorized access will face immediate expulsion without appeal." What could have prompted such severe restrictions from a man known for his commitment to open spiritual inquiry? November 12, 1936. 45 years after Blavatsky's death, a young French translator named Pierre Lafitte creates a minor scandal within theosophical circles. Claiming to have been granted special access to Blavatsky's sealed writings during a visit to Adyar, Lafitte announces his intention to publish what he describes as revolutionary teachings on the energy pattern of the human soul and its journey beyond physical death. The response from the Society's leadership is swift and unprecedented. Lafitte is publicly denounced as a fraud. His membership is revoked. Official statements claim he never had access to any restricted materials. Yet strangely, within weeks, the Society implements new security protocols for its archives. The manuscript is moved to a different location, and a special committee is formed to protect the integrity of Madame Blavatsky's unpublished works. Most revealing is what happened to Lafitte himself. After his expulsion, he continued insisting he had copied portions of the manuscript, promising proof would be forthcoming. But before he could produce any evidence, his apartment in Paris suffered a mysterious fire that destroyed all his papers. Lafitte himself disappeared from public life entirely, with no records of his activities or whereabouts after 1937. The Society dismissed the entire affair as the actions of an attention-seeking imposter. Yet one question remained unanswered. How did Lafitte know about a document whose existence was not publicly acknowledged? March 3, 2002. A small electrical fire breaks out in the Sydney branch of the Theosophical Society, damaging part of their archival storage. During the cleanup and inventory assessment, preservation specialist Dr. Marcus Chen makes a puzzling discovery: a water-damaged folder containing papers with strange symbols that don't match any known theosophical texts. They weren't like anything in our standard collections, Chen later recalled in an interview with an esoteric journal. The diagrams combined elements of sacred geometry with what looked almost like electrical schematics, and there were numerical sequences that resembled frequency patterns. Before experts could properly examine these papers, Society officials from the international headquarters arrived and removed them, citing preservation concerns. Chen was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding what he had seen. The official explanation was that these were simply damaged copies of already published works. But most intriguing was what Chen found alongside the folder: a hand-drawn map with coordinates marked in faded ink. When he later checked these coordinates out of curiosity, he discovered they pointed to a location in the Himalayas, a remote area not marked on any official atlas, situated between Tibet and Nepal. What was the significance of this location? And why would such a map be kept alongside papers that the Society was so quick to reclaim? These three incidents, spanning more than a century, reveal a pattern of protection and secrecy surrounding Blavatsky's final manuscript. But as we're about to discover, fragments of this knowledge have begun to emerge, pieced together from leaked pages, cross-referenced with the private writings of other visionaries who glimpsed the same truths. And what these fragments reveal about the nature of human consciousness and its journey beyond death challenges everything we thought we knew about the most universal human experience, the moment when we cross the threshold from life to whatever lies beyond. The first time researcher Diana Merrick saw the leaked pages from Blavatsky's manuscript, she noticed something that made her heart race. There, in Blavatsky's distinctive handwriting, was a specific numerical value that seemed oddly precise for a 19th century spiritualist. 33 Hz. In the initial phase of transition, Blavatsky wrote, the soul body oscillates at a frequency of 33 cycles, creating the vibrational corridor through which consciousness passes beyond material limitation. This frequency can be detected as a subtle humming by those whose inner ears have been properly attuned. What makes this remarkable is that modern neuroscience has identified this exact frequency range, 33 Hz, as significant in altered states of consciousness. It appears during deep meditation, certain types of mystical experiences, and most intriguingly, in some recorded brain activity of people undergoing near-death experiences. Dr. Samuel Hoffman, a neurologist who has studied hundreds of NDE cases, finds this correlation difficult to dismiss. We've recorded this specific frequency in subjects recounting their out-of-body experiences during clinical death. The fact that Blavatsky identified this precise value over a century before we had the technology to measure it raises fascinating questions. But the manuscript goes further, mapping what happens second by second after death. According to Blavatsky, the initial 33 Hz vibration lasts exactly 108 seconds, another number sacred in Eastern traditions, before shifting to a higher frequency that she describes as beyond measurement by material instruments. During this precise interval, she claims, the individual remains in a state where connection with both physical and non-physical realms is possible. This would explain why so many near-death experiences include the sensation of hovering above one's body, observing the scene below while simultaneously perceiving presences from the other side. If Blavatsky is correct, explains Dr. Hoffman, there exists a measurable transition phase during which consciousness operates in both realms simultaneously. This would be revolutionary for our understanding of what death actually is. Even more compelling is her description of what this transition feels like. The sensation is not of darkness or void, but of expansion beyond previous limitation. As if one had been living in a small room and suddenly discovered the walls were merely painted scenery that could be passed through into a vast landscape beyond. This mirrors countless testimonies from those who have returned from the brink of death, a remarkable alignment with experiences that Blavatsky could not have known about through conventional research of her time. Could this 33 Hz frequency be the actual signature of the soul leaving the body? And if so, what might we learn by studying this specific vibration more closely? Perhaps the most extraordinary element found among the leaked pages was what researchers have dubbed the etheric network diagram. Spanning 2 full pages of the manuscript, this intricate illustration depicts what Blavatsky called the conscious etheric network, a geometric structure that she claimed underlies all reality and serves as the medium through which consciousness travels after physical death. The diagram consists of 12 interlocking elliptical spirals, forming a pattern reminiscent of advanced quantum field visualizations. Each spiral contains symbols drawn from various esoteric traditions, Tibetan, Egyptian, and some that appear to be unique to Blavatsky herself. Most striking are the nodal points where these spirals intersect, marked with specific mathematical notations and what appear to be frequency values. Dr. Helena Blavatsky, a physicist who has studied the leaked pages, notes something remarkable. These patterns bear an uncanny resemblance to diagrams found in Nikola Tesla's private notes from his Colorado Springs laboratory, particularly those dating from 1899 to 1900, when he was conducting experiments on what he called non-Hertzian waves and thought transmission. Tesla, working a decade after Blavatsky's death and with no known connection to theosophical teachings, sketched similar interlocking patterns in the margins of his notes, alongside calculations related to his experiments with wireless energy transmission. In one margin note dated July 3, 1899, Tesla wrote, "The medium through which thought is transmitted must be the same that carries light and electricity, but at different vibrational states." This conceptual parallel between Blavatsky's etheric network and Tesla's theoretical framework for energy transmission raises profound questions. Were these two revolutionary thinkers, separated by background, methodology, and worldview, somehow perceiving the same underlying reality? The diagram contains another puzzling element. Small notations in Blavatsky's handwriting appear around the outer edge of the pattern, including specific references to what she terms transit points and dimensional thresholds. These are places where, according to her text, consciousness can move between different levels of reality. And next to one such threshold, barely visible in the faded ink, appears a phrase that seems entirely out of place, as Einstein will later verify. This reference is chronologically impossible. Albert Einstein was just 12 years old when Blavatsky died in 1891. He wouldn't publish his revolutionary theories until 1905 and wouldn't achieve worldwide recognition until years later. How could Blavatsky have known to reference him by name? When confronted with this anomaly, Dr. Weston suggests two possibilities. Either the manuscript was altered after Blavatsky's death, which contradicts all evidence about its sealed nature, or Blavatsky had access to information through means beyond conventional explanation. The implications are staggering. If authentic, this reference suggests Blavatsky somehow perceived future scientific discoveries that would validate her understanding of consciousness and its relationship to energy, space, and time. When studied closely, the etheric network diagram doesn't just depict static structures. It appears to illustrate movements, flows, and transformations. According to Blavatsky's accompanying notes, this network serves as both the medium through which consciousness travels after death and the underlying structure connecting all living beings during physical existence. The conscious etheric network, she writes, is not separate from material reality, but interpenetrates it completely like water saturating a sponge. The physical senses cannot detect it, but consciousness itself is native to this medium and returns to full awareness of it when released from bodily limitation. If Blavatsky and Tesla were indeed perceiving the same underlying reality, one that modern physics is only beginning to theorize about, what might this tell us about consciousness itself? Could it be that our awareness is not produced by the brain but merely focused through it, like light through a lens? The most cryptic and perhaps most significant element discovered among the leaked pages appears on what seems to be the final page of the manuscript. At first glance, it looks like a strange hybrid of Eastern spirituality and Western science, a Tibetan Buddhist mantra written above a partial scientific equation. The mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, the most sacred phrase in Tibetan Buddhism, often translated as the jewel in the lotus, appears in Sanskrit characters at the top of the page. Below it is written an equation that would not be formulated until 1900, 9 years after Blavatsky's death. E.F. Planck's equation relating energy to frequency. But Blavatsky's version contains a crucial modification. Where F would normally represent frequency, she has substituted the Sanskrit word Atman, meaning soul or true self. Dr. Michael Christensen, a quantum physicist who has studied consciousness research, explains the significance. She's essentially proposing that the soul itself is a specific frequency pattern, quantifiable, measurable energy. This aligns remarkably well with emerging theories in quantum biology about consciousness as an ordered quantum field. The equation is accompanied by detailed notes explaining what Blavatsky called soul resonance, the unique vibrational signature that constitutes an individual consciousness. According to her text, this signature persists beyond physical death, neither created nor destroyed, but simply changing form. Each soul, she writes, maintains its distinct resonance pattern throughout all transformations, like a melody played on different instruments remains recognizable despite the change in medium. This is the scientific basis for what religions have called immortality. Most disturbing is the warning that appears at the bottom of the page, written in red ink that has remained vibrant despite the passage of time. Those who activate these resonances without proper preparation will indeed see beyond the veil, but may find themselves unable to return. The vibrational corridor opens in both directions. This warning suggests that Blavatsky believed the boundary between life and death could be deliberately crossed through specific practices involving these frequencies, but not without risk. It implies that consciousness could potentially become trapped between states, or prematurely separated from the physical body. Dr. Christensen finds this particularly significant. This aligns with reports from both psychiatric literature and shamanic traditions about the dangers of certain consciousness-altering practices. It suggests Blavatsky understood that these weren't merely symbolic or subjective experiences, but interactions with actual structures of reality. The mantra equation combination appears to be a kind of key or activation sequence, combining sound, the mantra, intention, the focus of consciousness, and understanding, the mathematical relationship, to facilitate direct perception of the etheric network Blavatsky described elsewhere in the manuscript. This is not merely theory, she writes in a note beside the equation. It is a practical method for expanding perception beyond material limitation. But like any powerful tool, it carries both opportunity and danger. What makes this particularly compelling is how it connects to modern research on sound frequencies and brain states. Certain chanted mantras, including Om Mani Padme Hum, have been shown to generate specific brainwave patterns associated with altered states of consciousness. When combined with focused intention, these states can produce experiences that transcend ordinary perception. But what did Blavatsky mean by those who might find themselves unable to return? And why would this knowledge need to be protected for 3 generations? When we integrate these 3 extraordinary elements from Blavatsky's manuscript, the transition frequency, the etheric network diagram, and the resonance equation, a cohesive and revolutionary understanding of consciousness emerges. One that bridges Eastern spiritual wisdom and Western scientific inquiry in ways that were unimaginable in Blavatsky's time, but increasingly supported by cutting-edge research today. According to Blavatsky, the soul is not a metaphysical concept, but an actual wave intelligence, a self-aware pattern of energy capable of existing independently from the physical body and reconfiguring itself in fields of light after the collapse of its material form. Throughout her final manuscript, she describes consciousness as primary, not emergent from matter, but rather the foundation from which material reality manifests. The physical brain, in her model, serves as a transceiver, not generating consciousness, but focusing and limiting it to function within 3-dimensional existence. This perspective was echoed decades later by Tesla in his unpublished letters, where he wrote about the transmission of consciousness energy and proposed that each living being possesses a unique vibrational signature that constitutes its true identity. Tesla even suggested in notes dated 1925 that this signature could potentially be measured and perhaps even communicated with after physical death. The similarities between Blavatsky's descriptions and Tesla's speculations are too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Both described reality as fundamentally vibrational rather than material. Both proposed that consciousness operates through specific frequency patterns, and both concluded that what we call death is merely a transition of consciousness from one vibrational state to another. This understanding renders death not an ending, but a phase change, like water transforming into vapor, still composed of the same essential elements, but functioning in a different state with different properties. Consciousness, freed from physical limitation, expands into what Blavatsky called its native medium, the conscious etheric network depicted in her diagrams. But perhaps most provocative is a handwritten letter found attached to one of the leaked pages, written in pencil in what appears to be Blavatsky's handwriting. The paper is different from the main manuscript, thinner, seemingly added later, and contains information that has never appeared in any published theosophical text. Not all souls complete the transition. Some, too heavily bound to material, existence through desire or fear, cannot stabilize in the higher vibrational state. These remain in an intermediate condition, neither fully embodied nor fully free, until either assisted by those already transitioned or gradually dissolved back into the universal energy field. This dissolution is not destruction but the postponement of individualized consciousness until more favorable conditions emerge. This extraordinary statement suggests that survival of consciousness after death is neither automatic nor guaranteed, that the soul's cohesion depends on its development during physical life, and its response during the transition process itself. If Blavatsky's understanding is correct, what does this mean for our conception of existence, for our approach to life and death, and what implications might it have for how we live now, knowing that we are developing the vibrational patterns that will determine our experience beyond physical existence? What if consciousness isn't just something we have, but something we are? A specific pattern of energy temporarily focused through physical form, but ultimately independent of it. How might this transform our understanding of what it means to be human? If the soul is indeed a frequency, a specific vibrational pattern unique to each individual, could we potentially attune ourselves to higher states, even while still embodied? This question leads us to perhaps the most profound implication of Blavatsky's hidden knowledge, that we might be able to consciously shape our soul's vibrational signature through how we live. Throughout her published works, Blavatsky emphasized the development of compassion, clarity of thought, and expanded awareness as the highest human pursuits. Her private manuscript takes this further, suggesting these qualities directly affect the vibrational pattern of consciousness itself, strengthening its coherence and preparing it for existence beyond physical form. Consider the potential applications of this understanding in our modern world. If consciousness operates through specific frequencies, we might develop technologies that facilitate communication across the boundary between physical and non-physical states. Imagine instruments sensitive enough to detect and interpret the 33 Hz transition frequency Blavatsky described, potentially allowing communication with those who have crossed that threshold. This isn't as far-fetched as it might seem, explains Dr. Hoffman. We already have technologies that can detect and measure subtle electromagnetic fields generated by consciousness. The challenge is interpretation, understanding what these patterns mean. Such technologies could transform our experience of grief and separation, providing evidence that our connections with loved ones continue beyond physical death. They might offer comfort to the bereaved, validation for those who have sensed the presence of departed loved ones, and potentially even two-way communication between different states of consciousness. However, as with any powerful technology, there exists potential for misuse. If consciousness can be measured and potentially influenced through specific frequencies, might this knowledge be exploited by those seeking control over others? Could governments or organizations develop methods to manipulate consciousness for their own purposes? Some researchers who have studied the leaked pages express concern about references to induced reincarnation, a process Blavatsky describes whereby consciousness might be directed toward specific embodiments rather than following its natural trajectory. While she presents this as theoretical rather than practical knowledge, the implications are disturbing. This may explain the extreme secrecy surrounding the manuscript, suggests Dr. Weston. Blavatsky understood that in the wrong hands, this knowledge could be weaponized or exploited. Yet the positive potential far outweighs these concerns. Imagine being able to help those in the dying process navigate the transition with awareness and intention rather than fear and confusion. Picture the possibility of scientifically confirming what many have intuitively sensed, that we are more than our physical bodies, that consciousness continues, and that our connections with others transcend physical separation. Perhaps most profound is the personal implication. If you and those you've loved are not just physical entities, but unique patterns of conscious energy, then separation is an illusion born of limited perception. In the vibrational reality Blavatsky describes, reconnection becomes possible when we attune ourselves to the same note as those who have transitioned. Think about that for a moment. What if you could learn to shift your own awareness to perceive the continued existence of those you thought were lost, not through vague hope or wishful thinking, but through practical understanding of how consciousness operates beyond physical limitations? Would you use this knowledge to heal the wounds of grief, to transform your relationship with mortality, or would you, like the Theosophical Society, keep it guarded out of concern for how it might be misunderstood or misused? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Would you embrace the chance to understand and perhaps even experience consciousness beyond its physical expression? Or does the potential disruption to our conventional understanding of reality seem too unsettling. Before we conclude, there's one more intriguing detail worth noting. According to marginalia on one of the leaked pages, Tesla may have left behind practical instructions for mapping one's own soul frequency, methods combining electrical measurements, sound harmonics, and meditative techniques that could potentially allow individuals to become aware of their unique vibrational signature. These notes suggest the process begins with learning to perceive specific electromagnetic fields through trained attention, a skill Tesla himself reportedly developed to an extraordinary degree. By gradually refining perception of these subtle energies, one might eventually discern their own consciousness operating beyond the confines of the physical brain. What if the boundary between life and death is far more permeable than we've been taught to believe? What if consciousness exists on a spectrum rather than in binary states of embodied or disembodied? And what if Blavatsky's understanding of the soul as a vibrational pattern is merely the beginning of a much deeper reality? Some researchers who have studied both Blavatsky's leaked pages and other esoteric traditions suggest that beyond the soul itself lie additional energetic structures, what Edgar Cayce called bodies of sound, geometry, and time. What Einstein theorized as non-local consciousness fields, and what quantum physicists now describe as information-preserving structures at the quantum level. These perspectives converge on a revolutionary possibility that human existence is multidimensional by nature, simultaneously operating across several levels of reality, most of which remain outside our ordinary perception. If you found this exploration compelling, subscribe now and activate notifications for our channel. We'll continue investigating these hidden connections between ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science, revealing knowledge that transforms our understanding of consciousness and its journey beyond physical existence. Remember, the truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers to those who are ready to hear.